So what are we, 7, 8 months into the current US administration, assuming you're watching this video at the time of publication? And I think we can reasonably say, can't we, that having had a 4-year break to weed out the last few non-believers and regroup with an ultra-focused and ultra-loyal team of enablers, the new President 2.0 is certainly making an impact. It'd be impossible to scrutinise all of the policies currently spewing out of the White House like the back end of an incontinent dog. It'd take several videos to do that justice, and in any case, most of it is way out of my lane and far better left to more knowledgeable commentators than me. I couldn't help noticing, though, that among the various pronouncements of recent months was a declaration by the Environmental Protection Agency that greenhouse gases do not endanger human beings, a congressional bill to rescind most of the energy transition incentives enshrined in the Inflation Reduction Act, and an executive branch attempt to overrule state legislation regulating tailpipe emissions, among a host of other policy actions, presumably aimed at convincing the hard-working families of America that fossil fuels are an entirely benign energy provider that have not only powered US economic prosperity since the end of World War II, but will continue to be a benevolent and entirely harmless provider of wealth and energy security for at least the rest of this century. So I thought I should just check if that's right. Hello, and welcome to Just Have a Think. Now, before we get stuck in, I must just let you know about the biggest UK Everything Electric show of this year, which is coming up in Farnborough on the 11th and 12th of October. There's all the usual brilliant stuff like test drives of all the latest electric vehicles, plus a whole arena full of experts to guide you through the process of choosing heat pumps, solar panels, battery energy systems, car chargers, and just about everything else related to the energy transition. There's a massive outside area as well, with great food zones and space for the kids to run around and have a bit of fun. Plus, if you come along this year, you'll get to watch the live televised finals of a fantastic new show called Zap-Heap, hosted by Robert Llewellyn and the crazy genius that is Colin Furze. Oh yeah, and I'll be moderating several discussion panels across the 2 days as well. Tickets are just £10 this year, and if you use my Just Have a Think discount code at the bottom of the screen, then you'll get another 20% off that price. What's not to like? So follow the link at the top of the screen or in the description section below to grab your tickets while they're still available, and I'll hopefully see you there. One of the realities linking all those lovely new clean energy technologies that I just mentioned is the fact that they all have to be manufactured, which means materials need to be sourced, processed, refined and shipped to factories around the world. I cannot for the life of me understand why that should come as a surprise to anyone, but apparently it does to some. There is, of course, an environmental and carbon cost in those supply chain activities, no question about it. And hasn't the fossil fuel PR machine been busy telling us about how terrible those environmental and carbon costs are via the myriad press and social media outlets that they now either fully control or have significant influence over? We don't hear them laying out the environmental and carbon costs of their own production and processing though, do we? Let alone the consequences of the combustion of their end products. Those stats do exist though, so I looked them up. Let's start with the one that I think we all know about, which is greenhouse gas emissions from the combustion of fossil fuels. And to do that, it's probably useful to get ourselves a bit of context. You see, you could be forgiven for thinking that renewables are displacing fossil fuels so rapidly now that we'll be completely decarbonised by maybe the end of this decade or perhaps early in the next one. The International Renewable Energy Agency, or IRENA, tells us that renewables made up 93% of all new electrical generation installations globally in 2024. The US Energy Information Administration, or EIA, is projecting that solar PV alone will make up 50% of all new US electricity capacity in 2025, with almost all the rest coming from wind and battery energy storage. You might have seen recent news about Pakistani citizens building out rooftop solar so fast in just 8 months of last year that it equated to half the capacity of their national grid and reduced diesel use by 35% in a single year in a country of roughly 250 million people. And no doubt you're aware of the eye-watering acceleration of solar power in China that I've covered in several recent videos. The International Energy Agency, or IEA, recently published this chart showing that renewables, including hydropower, are projected to overtake coal in 2026 as the main global electricity generator. But electricity is not the only energy source we humans require, is it? There's also domestic and industrial heat, and of course transport, among other things. Take a look at this infographic from the folks at Visual Capitalist. Puts things into rather clearer perspective, don't you think? It tells us that total global energy demand increased by 2% in 2024 to an all-time high of 592 exajoules, which is a number so ridiculously huge it's hard to get your head around. But to give you at least some idea, it is the equivalent of about 103 billion barrels of oil per year. Now, it's worth reminding ourselves that about 2/3 of the energy in fossil fuels is completely wasted in conversion and combustion. By stark contrast, renewables can be more like 90+% efficient. So we should take care here not to make the so-called primary energy fallacy mistake of assuming that renewables will need to replace all of that oil, gas and coal on a like-for-like basis. It won't. But it will still be a Herculean task. According to this recent article, the world is on track to produce 110% more oil, gas and coal by 2030 than we can afford to burn if we want to stay below 2 degrees Celsius of warming. So fossil fuels still dominate our energy landscape, and greenhouse gas emissions from the production, processing, shipping and combustion of those fossil fuels are still going up each year, not down. Contrary to the recent assertions of the US DOE, those greenhouse gases are making extreme weather events far worse and far more commonplace, which is definitely harmful to human beings. Ask a Californian who's just lost their uninsurable home, or a Midwest farmer who's lost a season's crop through drought or flood, or someone in Bangladesh or Pakistan or China or any number of other countries around the world where people are literally losing their lives through extreme heat or flash flooding or seasonal drought. Human civilization has never, ever had to face anything like what we're up against in the next few decades, and certainly not while trying to feed 8 billion mouths and keep some semblance of geopolitical harmony in place. But of course, greenhouse gases are only part of the fossil fuel problem. According to a comprehensive 2020 study by the Department of Preventive Medicine at the University of Southern California, there are approximately 40,000 oil fields operating globally, with about 6 million people living in close proximity to them. The paper's researchers found adverse impacts to soil, air and water quality, and evidence suggesting potential health impacts due to exposure to upstream oil extraction, including liver damage, immunodeficiency and neurological symptoms. Oil and gas extraction causes something that the industry euphemistically refers to as produced water. It can contain dispersed crude oil, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons or PAHs, alkyl phenols and metals, none of which could be described as benign. And let's not forget the devastation caused by catastrophic failures on oil and gas platforms all over the world over the years, which have taken the lives of hundreds, maybe even thousands of people and caused untold damage to surrounding ecosystems. The transport and storage of oil and gas is another doozy. According to a 2024 analysis by Reuters, between 2019 and 2023, so-called gas pipeline mishaps released almost 10 billion cubic feet, or about 280 million cubic metres of gas into the atmosphere, the equivalent of running 4 average-sized coal-fired power stations for a year, just from leaky gas pipelines. Under federal rules, those emissions are not included in the official US greenhouse gas count. I can't imagine them being counted in future greenhouse gas counts either, assuming the official US greenhouse gas count even continues to be carried out at all under the current administration, which seems unlikely. Oil pipes are also inherently leaky. According to the US Centre for Biological Diversity, between 1986 and 2014, there were nearly 8,000 incidents resulting in 500 deaths, 2,300 injuries and $7 billion in damages. A 2025 report by Frac Tracker Alliance found that pipeline incidents are now a daily occurrence in the United States. The major Keystone pipeline from Canada to the USA has had 23 leak incidents since opening in 2010, releasing 1 million gallons of oil into the surrounding soil ecosystems. In 2020, the Colonial pipeline spill in North Carolina released about 2 million gallons of oil just in a single event. And you can bet that similar leaks are happening all over the world, often in countries with far less transparent reporting systems. Oil tankers aren't immune from mishaps either. Moving fossil fuels around the planet accounts for no less than 40% of all bulk shipping globally. According to the International Tanker Owner Pollution Federation, or ITOPF, oil spills from tankers, mainly as a result of collisions and accidental grounding, have increased in the last decade, averaging just over 7 spills every year of 7 tonnes or more each. Then there's coal, the practice of mountaintop removal for coal mining, which essentially entails blowing up mountains to directly access coal seams, mostly in the Appalachian region of America, not only obliterates ancient hardwood forests full of critical ecosystems, well over 2,000 square miles worth, in fact, across Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky and Tennessee, which is an area 3 times the size of Greater London, but it also sends toxins from so-called mining wash flooding into local waterways, killing a large amount of wildlife outright and poisoning whatever manages to survive, passing those toxins all the way up the food chain. Those waterways often provide the drinking water for human beings downstream, so that all gets contaminated as well. The forests don't grow back and the damage to the mountain is permanent, so no more carbon storage in mature hardwood trees and lots more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from the burning of the coal. Abandoned traditional coal mines are rarely maintained, which means depending on the geographical makeup of the area, they can continue to drain highly acidic water rich in heavy metals directly into local groundwater, surface water and soil, again potentially causing harm to plants, animals and humans. So much for
beautiful, clean coal.
And now for the big one, air pollution. The World Health Organization tells us that in 2019 there were 6.7 million deaths worldwide as a result of exposure to ambient and household air pollution. In 2023, 2.1 billion people still relied primarily on polluting fuels for cooking, and a staggering 99% of the global population lived in areas where air pollution exceeded WHO guidelines. It's no surprise that the worst air pollution can be found in India and China, but nearly 200,000 air pollution deaths in the USA just in 2015 is surely not something to be ignored either. The Our World in Data website also analysed deaths from accidents and air pollution for every terawatt hour of electricity produced by all the main generation technologies. Solar, wind and nuclear barely register on the scale, hydropower is a little worse, but as soon as we get into fossil fuels, the bars just keep rolling on and on until we reach nearly 33 deaths for every terawatt hour of electricity produced from brown coal, otherwise known as lignite. All these things, all the associated damage and loss of property and infrastructure and loss of livelihoods and lives, are all entirely unaccounted for in the price of a barrel of oil or unit of gas. If they had to be paid for by the fossil fuel industry, it'd cost them roughly $6 trillion per year, according to recent research by the International Monetary Fund. Fossil fuel companies don't pay those compensations and reparation costs though, of course, and they probably never will. It's what economists call an implicit subsidy. And when the IMF combined those with the explicit subsidies that the industry already enjoys via things like favourable grants, tax breaks, accelerated depreciation, discounted land purchases and subsidised consumer prices, they got to an overall annual subsidy in 2022 of some $7 trillion. The vast majority of nations on the planet understand the health hazards to their citizens and the GDP impacts to their economies, not to mention the global warming implications of continuing to use fossil fuels to drive global economic growth. Representatives from all those countries, including China and India, will be gathering in Brazil later this year for arguably one of the most consequential COP climate conferences so far. Rather than playing a lead role in that crucial fortnight of meetings, or even any role, this year the United States of America has confirmed it will not be attending at all. I'll let you make your own mind up about that decision, and of course, if you feel the need to voice your opinions one way or the other, then as always, the place to leave your thoughts is in the comment section below. That's it for this week though. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you found this video useful and informative, and if you also click on the all notifications button, you'll get a ping when new videos drop every Sunday. You can also directly support my work by joining the amazing group of individuals over at patreon.com/justhavathink who enable me to stay independent and keep ads and sponsorship messages out of your way. Most important of all though, thanks very much for watching. Have a great week and remember to just have a think. See you next week.